lingual sonic communication. We will return it when we return to this time and space. So all kind of stuff went down yesterday. You would think it was the last Thursday in time, which is kind of odd. You had, just to comment on it, I commented on it a little bit, but after watching it, you had the very last program after 17 years of Jon Stewart. I used to watch The Daily Show when it was Craig Kilborn. And The Daily Show was just Craig Kilborn asking celebrities 5 questions, and it was basically nothing more than a celebrity chat show. So then Jon Stewart comes along, and you're thinking to yourself, what? What is this really bad actor and this kind of failed Borscht Belt sort of tiny little Jewish comedian? And who knows that governments would fear him, that presidents would fear him, that he would eviscerate so many things and so many people. And I was commenting yesterday, and this is what they went with, my comedy sense being true. I was commenting on how many people had come out of The Daily Show, how many celebrities, movie stars, directors, the Rob Riggles and the Stephen Colberts and the it's just if you watch TV today, if you watch television, watch movies, watch film, you got Steve Carell. You've got Stephen Colbert now hosting the Late Show, taking over for David Letterman. Who saw that coming? Because Stephen Colbert, again, not a stand-up comedian, has done nothing but play a mockery of a conservative, I guess, right-wing talk show host. It's basically him doing Rush Limbaugh and Bill O'Reilly on crack. What's going to happen when he loses that shtick? What's going to happen when he's no longer I give a wag of the finger, America? What's going to happen when the popularity that drove him as a ridiculous version of a neocon, if you will, when that whole character goes away and he has to actually be himself? Plus with the fact that he's French Canadian. He's not even from this country. So he's a French Canadian, and the guy who's taking over for Jon Stewart is a mulatto South African. So we have JP with us. Actually, JP, how you doing? JP, I'm not sure if you heard this or not, but JP had a vasectomy, and all it did was make the kids different colors. Was that true, JP? Never mind. He's not even paying attention.
Didn't you hear that? I was just laughing.
And I think in studio we have Pip the Wonder Dog. Is he here with us?
Come on, perform.
Is Pip there?
He's not barking now. He's here. Hang on. You can hear him crunch his biscuit. Go on, what's this? What's that? I don't believe it.
He's not saying.
There you go. Yeah, he's just but you can hear him crunching his biscuit.
Yep.
That's very unexciting.
I'm not going to bother him when he is chewing his biscuits. I don't chew anybody chewing their biscuits.
You don't disturb anybody when they're chewing biscuits.
That's right. When he's done with his biscuit, I will do my Reverend Ames angry routine. That's what he likes. He likes it when I put your hands on the radio. Feel the warmth of my sincerity. When I get all excited and start doing that funny voice, he barks. Anyway, we've got Pip the Wonder Dog. So Jon Stewart leaving the Daily Show, last day of the Daily Show. I mean, it's not like he's dying or anything, but mixed feelings about Jon Stewart again. I stopped watching the program about 5 years ago when it just wasn't funny anymore. You know, all the good hosts and correspondents, all the really good organic people had moved on to other things. And then he's got these really kind of fake Gen Next. I don't even know what you call these kids. Generation Z, because they're the last and they're lazy and they're just raised on iPhones and iPods. And, they're the machine world people. They're not actually alive. I think the epitaph for this entire generation is they never looked up. Because they all get hit by a bus.
That's the one that comes from the sky. Yeah.
That's it. They never looked up. That's the whole generation. My generation would probably we screwed ourselves to death. But these kids, they never look up. They get hit by a bus. The end. Wow. What did he look like? I don't know. I only saw the top of his head. Yeah, that sort of thing. So the funny part about this was I was commenting how many people had actually come off the Daily Show, and the fact that they had 17 people on the dais at Quicken Loans Center where the Cavaliers play in Ohio, and the guy that got the biggest hoot and holler was John Kasich, who's the governor actually, and he's a great governor. He's really pulled them out, and I just thought it was funny. There were so many people on the stage, and then I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if Daily Show did the same thing. I mean, I thought this in my head. I probably didn't say it on the radio, but I was pointing out how many people had come out of the Daily Show. How many people? I mean, there were probably 30 different people that were either correspondents for the Daily Show or regular contributors, including Josh Gad, who's got to be the most unfunny guy on earth. He played the snowman in Frozen, which made him $1 billion, but everything else he's ever been in ever since then has been very poor. Because I think he was on Saturday Night Live for a period of time, and so anyway, so there it was. So that's what they did last night for Jon Stewart. If you didn't see it, they brought the correspondents out. These 3 new correspondents. You've got the guy from India. You've got the black girl with the dreadlocks who dresses like Harry Potter. And you've got the obligatory tall doofus white guy. And they were going to cover the debates, but no, they needed more correspondence. And then everybody came in. So you had everybody who had ever been on the Daily Show over the last 17 years, including, I think, because my Moxie box or TiVo or DVR or whatever cut off, but I think Bruce Springsteen came in at the end and sang a song or something. But it's, again, you cannot deny the effect that Jon Stewart has had on the landscape, the effect that this generation looks at Jon Stewart like other generations looked at Dan Rather, looked at Huntley and Brinkley, looked at Walter Cronkite. There were more people getting their news every night from the Daily Show than there were from network news.
Absolutely.
That's true. And the reason for this is because you can say that when Stewart came out, even with his quips and his jibes and his comedy, he was telling a form of the truth in comedic form. The challenge with him is that he was still the attack dog of the left. He was still somebody that if you wanted to own a gun, if you believed in constitutional freedom, if you believed in anything that was, I don't know, actually good for you in the country, it was up to Stewart to diffuse you. It was up for him to go out and send his mindless minions out to attack you in a lot of different ways. And probably the reason so many people in the media have come out of the Daily Show is you really are vetted with that whole kind of communistic, socialistic, well, I hate to say Nazi, but the Nazis were National Socialists. That's in essence what it was. So you could say Obama's a Nazi. He's a National Socialist. All these people are National Socialists. But you were vetted in that whole socialist, communist, Marxist, leftist philosophy under Stewart. And of course, once you're vetted there, you're then set out to the rest of the media to bring that message of harm to the rest of the world. And at the same time, he never took on any of the real sacred cows, but he did take on the banks. He took on all the safe stuff, all the stuff that the left is allowed to be able to get upset about. He never really took on a lot of big pharma. He did take on the banks a bit, but that's only because they were protesting in Zuccotti Square. And I also might want to point out that nothing in those protests, there really was nothing that came from any of that. If they had just gotten behind putting in the Glass-Steagall Act again as an example and separating the Wall Street banks from savings and loans, from commercial banks, from insurance, from stock brokerages, you would not have these banks that are too big to fail. You would have a huge renaissance in all these financial industries because now you would have true competition between all of this. And the 2008 stock market crash was basically set up lock, stock, and barrel from Bill Clinton, as I predicted, repealing the Glass-Steagall Act. And the Glass-Steagall Act, after the crash of 1933, was responsible for setting up firewalls in between all these financial institutions. Now you go to Bank of America and Bank of America is rolling your money in the stock market. I mean, the minute you put your money in there, there's a guy from Merrill Lynch in the corner that if you want a stock portfolio with your bank, and there used to be walls, there used to be divisions between all this. So neither here nor there. It was interesting to look at the retrospective, if you will, of what he considered some of his best pieces. And look, I was a fan. I was a fan of their coverage. I always had my tongue in my cheek. I always knew that I was going to get the left-hand side of the story, that I was going to get the socialist, communist, whatever it was that he represented. He's the ultimate epitome of the New York Jewish establishment media. I mean, that's him. At the same time, though, he did also tell the truth and take on people like CNN and take on the and I'll only say it once because it's not that kind of show, but at the very end, and over the course of the last 2 weeks when I began to tape the show again, and all he started doing was yelling the F word and FDF and FU and jumping up and down like a monkey and tearing up his papers. And, at the very end, he turned to the camera and said, "You need a better bullshit detector." So he went on and said the BS word like a dozen times or so, which, again, okay, That was everything the media is supposed to be doing today, which is that BS meter, if you will, which is that come on, which is that bringing truth to people. Unfortunately, because the media refused to do it, the only place you got it was satire. The only place you got it was places like The Daily Show, places like South Park, as an example. If we had anybody to enforce the moral fiber of society, it was South Park, because at least if you were disgusting enough, South Park would at least parody you. So let's swing from that. Okay, Jon Stewart, good to know you. I guess we'll see you. Wouldn't want to be don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Again, not really going to miss him because he has been fun for a long time and hasn't really been interesting or relevant for quite some time because he just stopped being funny. He stuck his head so far up his own rectum that I think that he just became too Lord God, King of the Flies powerful. And it got to the point where I think his own fame and his own snottiness got to him, I think, in the end of this whole thing, in my guesstimation. So, whatever. And now you're going to hear all the puff pieces about how brilliant it was. And again, they won 10 Emmys in the course of him being there for taking the media on. I think one of the best things I ever saw was he did do a couple of things of let's do candidate Bush versus Bush today, George Bush today, or candidate Obama versus Obama today. And I think he's one of the few people in the press that when Obama actually appeared on his show, he actually threw a couple of hardball questions at Obama, oddly enough, because Obama just gets out there and he's got that gold Doc Savage kind of skin, and he was like, "Hey, baby, how you doing? It's good to see you. I'm the president. I'm cool. Look at me. I'm black president." And nobody says, your foreign policy completely sucks, and you haven't done anything you said you're going to do. You've broken every promise to the American people, and why haven't you been impeached, and why aren't you in jail? Those are the questions that need to be asked. So now switching from that to all the correspondents that got one giant group hug and hugged Jon Stewart, and they should be kissing Jon Stewart's entire white pimply Hebrew ass, because every single one of those people owes their career and their fame and their movie careers and whatever to The Daily Show and what used to be Saturday Night Live, where you showed that you could do characters and you could act and you could do voices and do real comedy, became the ability to simply do a fake news piece and keep a straight face while you're making fun of somebody or calling them a retard or whatever it is you were doing. And that has now blossomed into film careers for people like Ed Helms and Rob Riggle and Stephen Colbert and Stephen Carell, all those people who became brilliant actors and comedians. Now, switching gears to the Republican presidential debate. They had the cocktail hour debate, which was probably far more interesting between people like Carly Fiorina, who she was former CEO of Hewlett Packard. Actually, we knew her because the other Meg Whitman was another chief executive at Hewlett Packard, and she was our next door neighbor. So Carly Fiorina up in Atherton, California, and Carly Fiorina used to come visit all the time. So neither here nor there. It wasn't like I was best friends with her, mowed her lawn or anything. But Carly Fiorina and Rick Perry. Rick Perry, again, one of the most interesting, and was a viable candidate the last time before he stuck his entire hoof in his mouth and started to wear glasses because people thought they made him smart. But it gives you an idea that here's a guy who ran the most populous state in the nation, or is California. I'm not. It always shifts between, depending on how many illegal aliens you count, it shifts between Texas, New York, Florida, and California. I think Florida is the third most. I don't know. I think Texas is up there. Might still be California. If you count the illegal aliens, the population of California is about that of China, about 1.2 billion or so. So, but the cocktail hour debate between the lower tiered candidates was probably far more interesting. Now, I would ask JP whether or not he saw the debates, but JP is an Englishman living in Scotland who gives a flying yes, indeed. Yeah, who doesn't give a flying fook at a rolling donut whether who the hell's president of the United States? I'm sure, right? Well, it's the man. Well, he's a man. Yes, he's a man, and so is his missus, isn't he? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, okay. So bottom line, you didn't see it, you don't care, so I can't bounce any of this. But the thing is, I actually I came across the Daily Show. When was it? About 2003. We had it on Channel 4 in Britain, and I used to love it because it was a daily show. Yeah, we got it a day later.
but it actually came out on a TV, you know, and so it was quite cutting edge, and that's where I learned about American politics, of course. And,
I think they actually carried it on CNN. I was pretty sure they carried it on CNN worldwide, but I think they carried it on Channel 4. But it was, all part of.
All until he insulted the Queen.
Yeah, that probably was.
And then it all stopped, and I thought, oh yeah, well, good on you, mate. Great, actually.
Yeah, he took the
then I needed to figure out. Then I needed to figure out how to adapt my Firefox browser with spoofing of my IP address in order to see it without them understanding that I'm not in America. Yeah,
Pip.
See, Pip was pissed off about that as well.
Yes, indeed. Are you mad they took Daily Show off Scottish TV, Pip? Pip?
No, he's not. He didn't like Jon Stewart. No,
sure.
he's quite right wing.
Okay, all right. Well, so here's the Republican debates as I see them, and the 17 people of which nobody really got a chance to talk. My overall impression, ladies and gentlemen, oddly enough, is of all 17 of these men. Let me point out a couple of things. First off, they are absolutely right. The Democrats can't even come up with one decent candidate. Not one. They're on the Bataan, Tale of Cheers, yellow pant, polyester suit death march of making Hillary Clinton the next presidential candidate who nobody likes. Hillary Clinton shows up at stadiums or schools or whatever, and if they get a third of the people coming out to fill the place, Bernie Sanders filled a 10,000 person arena. Now Bernie Sanders is the left-wing socialist flavor du jour, if you will.
Is he a colonel? No, really. I mean,
no, he should be a colonel. Yeah, he should be a colonel. And I don't know. We have commercials now in this country where Daryl Hammond, and thank God nobody recognizes who he is, but Daryl Hammond was a impressionist that used to be on Saturday Night Live, and he now dresses up like Colonel Sanders. And they've now completely revamped the whole KFC chicken. And there's a rumor that they have to call it KFC because they can't legally call it actually chicken because it's supposedly made up of some DNA Frankensteinian monster mix or something, of something that like doesn't have a head or organs. It doesn't actually live, but they somehow still manage to call it chicken, and it's not really chicken.
Chicken-like substance.
Yes, it's a chicken-like substance, which I would be perfectly fine with, actually. If they could come up with a way to grow a blob in a jar that didn't have a head, that didn't feel pain, that, wasn't stuck on a chicken farm or whatever.
That was a lovely, sumptuous chicken breast.
I know, I would be all for that. I am totally down with what Carlton Heston said when he said, Soylent Green is people. They're making it out people. So, but that has nothing to do with the Republican debates. But yes, you're right. It should be Colonel Bernie Sanders. And his hair always looks like he stuck his penis in a light socket. That's what his hair looks like, always. He's just like, Marty, we've got to get back to the future, except he's bald. And I just realized also, because you turn the commercials on, and Steve usually calls my house to connect to the show, God bless him, like 20 minutes before the show, which is me just hanging out listening to Steve eat and play with his bearded dragon, which is not as bad as it sounds, folks. With Steve just kind of nom, 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 and all the troll-like noises that Steve makes when he does the show. So whereas you're running in from leaping about the Highlands and defending your title as the Highlander and
defending my chickens, yeah.
Yes, defending your chickens and tossing a caber or whatever the hell they do in Scotland. So you're usually 1 minute into the show, you call me. So I listened to that, the thing that they have, and I thought he was saying bald genius this entire time. What's the difference between a madman and a bald genius? And I just realized just now that he's saying bold genius, not bald genius.
I tell you, I'm sorry, Sean. That's actually my propaganda that's turned that in your mind. Because whenever we were doing it, I would say we're on the bald genius thing, and I would joke as it is the bald genius, not the.
But then I actually got to listen to it. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought this whole time he was saying bald genius, and why the only thing that turns you from a madman to a bald genius would probably be losing all your hair. I would think so.
Well, I don't know. You're a bald madman.
See, Pip.
Yeah.
There is no better sound. Truly. There is no better sound in the world than like an Eskimo dog or a Malamute or whatever making that sound. That is the best sound in the world. That's so funny.
Let's see if I can. Look. What's this? What's this? This is.
It's down behind the orange curtain, and you're not taking your life in your hands like you are at the LA Fair, where somebody always gets shot and somebody dies. And it's not horrible. The LA County Fair, I don't think it is even in LA County. It's in San Bernardino, in a terrible place called Pomona, which is out in what they call the 909. Nobody wants to go to the 909. That's the 909 area code, but that's Pomona. It's really northern Tijuana. Actually, I'm the mayor of northern Tijuana. Welcome. I've got a donkey painted like a zebra and a big sombrero, and I do a hat dance every night before I go to bed. JP, I just have to make one comment before I launch into another screed against the injustices of the world. Are you now tying your beard into like a cute little braid in your picture?
Actually, yes.
Okay,
it keeps it out of the way. What do you think?
Right. Well, you could just cut it, or you're going for that. You're definitely going for that. You know what you need? You need an owl, because with your look, you look exactly like you. I have a
Radagast. I have a stick.
I know. I have a statue, and I'm going to take a picture of it. But it's of Merlin, and he has his owl Archimedes on the top of his head. And I tell thee, thou looks exactly.
I tell thee. Thou lookest upon you, and I seeth I'm a wizard. Are you a wizard? I'm a what? I'm a wizard.
Well, a wizard. I know, but I have a little maquette of Merlin with his books and his owl on his head, and it just looks like you. And I just think it's interesting in your Skype picture. You can see his very, very handsome Skype picture. You're just tying off this beard, of which you should probably trim it at least. But I think
it's a thing. It's growing. It's not like I cut it. It's just that it grows. So sometimes I have to kind of. What's that thing they call when they trim a bush? Is that topiary or apiary?
No, it's topiary.
What the hell wrong with him?
Yeah, exactly. What the hell's wrong with him? I don't know what the hell's wrong with him.
Nothing's wrong with it. I'm just going to, for your birthday, I'm going to buy you a little box of bows for you to put on it.
Yeah, what I've been doing is making little copper rings. Really quite cute. Like little things that go in, the things that go in organite, those little twisted spirals. You can make beard rings that hang on them. See? Yeah, there you go. Pip agrees.
All right, enough of that. Anyway, so the Republican debates. And as I said, we'll get to some news after this. And if you want to call in, if you think
wake me up when you finish about the Republican debates. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let me point this out. First off, you can't really have Democratic debates because there just aren't enough people that want to get in the race. You have Hillary Clinton, who has somehow managed to raise. Well, she's raised it from China, from movie stars, from all kinds of foreign countries, which of course is illegal. She has her. I don't know why one person did not point out that bushclinton.org is a massive charity. I do not know why one person, and actually here's another thing in the debate as well. When it was pointed out that Donald Trump donates money to Democratic candidates, and he gave money to Nancy Pelosi, he gave money to Barbara Boxer, and that he gave money to Hillary Clinton as the senator of New York, and that he said he invited Hillary Clinton to, I believe, was it his wedding to Ivanka, or I thought it was his wedding actually, and he invited Hillary Clinton, and because he gave her money, she showed up. Does that not bother anybody that Donald Trump is like good buddies with Hillary Clinton? Does it not bother anybody that bushclinton.org is the charity through which, or the foundation through which they've managed to rip off people and raise tens of millions of dollars, mostly from foreign contributors? And nobody wanted to point that out. Now my other point is that you had a heated exchange between Rand Paul and Governor Chris Christie, of which Rand Paul was absolutely right. Chris Christie launched into talking about how he was attorney general in New Jersey, and that he was all about collecting data from people, and that Rand Paul then said, let's collect data from the terrorists, not collect data from everybody else. And then Chris Christie said, that's the most ridiculous thing. You're just blowing smoke, and you can just sit in a Senate subcommittee or whatever else. Again, so Chris Christie has now sworn, ladies and gentlemen, he has now pledged that if he is made president of the United States, that he would continue, doesn't matter that he vows to uphold the Constitution, he would continue to violate the Constitution, would continue the police state, would continue gathering massive amounts of information on innocent people in the bare chance, the 1 in a billion chance that one of them might be a terrorist. And, we used to deal with terrorists. We deal with criminals all the time. But when you deal with a criminal, you get a warrant. And then you get the warrant, and then you can eavesdrop. Then you gather evidence against that person, and then use that evidence in court. As opposed to just saying, well, to keep everybody safe, we're just going to scan license plates and get all the information about people off of license plates. They suck in, just through license plate scanners now, something like 1.5 million names per day just driving down the street. So now you've seen, and let's clarify a couple of things about the debate now. You have Chris Christie basically as the next guy in line to be the champion of the New World Order. So number one, he's eliminated. Rand Paul was exactly right, and Christie got all snotty with Rand Paul. And Rand Paul said, I'm going to defend the Bill of Rights. I'm going to defend the Fourth Amendment. You get a warrant to go after criminals. And Christie basically said, no, not going to do that. Oh, I have to keep the people safe, and it's easy for you to blow smoke in a subcommittee. So that's number one. Number two, you have John Kasich, who's the governor of Ohio, who would probably make the best president out of the bunch. If you wanted somebody that was going to drag us up out of the financial quagmire where Barack Obama has now spent more money than any human being in the history of man. I mean, let's combine Nebuchadnezzar and King Solomon and Xerxes of Persia. Let's throw them all in there. He spent more money than all of them in the first 8 months he was president. And what did he do? When they looted the banks, when the Bush-Clinton crime syndicate mafia used the Promise software to loot the banks on September 11th of 2008, Barack Obama showed up as the driver of the getaway car for the greatest crime, the greatest bank robbery in human history. I can't say the greatest crime because then you'd have to throw Stalin in there. You'd have to throw the entire Soviet regime and their 125 million people that they've murdered, and Mao Zedong, who murdered 60 million people, and Hitler, who once again may or may not have murdered 6 million people, but he murdered a bunch of people. It might not be as many as 6 million, but a bunch of people. I'm not questioning all these people. I'm going to question the Holocaust. You're really going to be put in a situation where you're actually defending Hitler. You can't defend Hitler. You just can't. So through all this, you have the greatest bank robbery in human history. But if you look at every single one of those candidates, the good thing I have to say about them is that on the one hand, you have a crazed, maniacal Marxist socialist who makes no qualms about the fact that he is. Then you have Hillary Clinton, who is a crazed, maniacal Marxist socialist, but pretend she's not. Pretend she's going to be all about being for the people. Don't pull my crank about her being for the people. Really. The woman who said, burn them all, she was the one that gave the order at Waco. The woman who was quite possibly allegedly responsible for murdering Vince Foster, her lover, rolling up on a carpet and dumping him in a park. A woman who with her husband have been directly or indirectly indicated in about 350 to maybe 500 political murders. These are mass murdering criminals. Now, you can say some good things about the Clintons. You could say that Clinton actually did a couple of things for the country when he was president. I can't think of one thing that George Bush did that was actually for the country, for the people, not one that didn't involve his rich international cronies. And if you look at the Bush crime family and you understand that Poppy Bush and George W. Bush and quite possibly now Jeb Bush, their family now has been responsible for more war, more death, more destruction, because people forget the Panamanian War, Operation Just Cause. People forget. Then you've got Desert Storm. Nobody forgets that one. Then you've got George Bush going to Afghanistan for no particular reason, going to Iraq and completely destabilizing the Middle East. And in essence, and I think somebody did bring this up, is that the last 6 months of George Bush's presidency were so dire and so disastrous that they gave us Barack Obama. They were directly responsible for people getting so sick and tired of the savagery of the Bush regime that they handed it to a guy with no experience at all. They handed it to a guy who had 147 days of experience in the Senate. You can't get a job managing a Burger King with that kind of experience. A guy that had no voting record whatsoever. There's 3 buttons in the Senate. There's a red button for no, a green button for yes, and a yellow button for abstaining. And they call it, excuse my French again, but they call it the chicken shit button. And Barack Obama hit the CS button, as they call it, something like 200 times. He voted on like 2 things. 2 things. And one was teaching homosexuality to kids in school. It was a sex education thing. And I can't think, and the other one was like a farm bill or something about growing pot in Hawaii. Whatever. This guy had no experience at all. But he gave a slick speech, gave a couple of slick speeches about hope and about change and how there's not going to be any more war and he's going to pull troops home, and every single thing he lied about, every single thing he promised you. He said he was going to transform America. That's true, but I don't want to get off on him. Let me point out that the Democrats have nothing and nobody. Maybe they'll get, this Warren woman or something to run against Hillary, and a bunch of people are going to vote for her because a bunch of people are idiots. A bunch of people are just going, I'm sorry, I've got another friend named Hillary who's like, I don't care, I'm going to vote for her. I don't care who she is. I don't care what she does. As long as they've got a D behind their name, I'm going to vote for them. That's what people think. I will also point out that the Democrats are all lawyers. Every single one. If you look at the Democrats in the Senate and the House, they are all freaking lawyers. They're all attorneys. And you look at that dais last night of 17 people. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I am pretty sure out of the 17, Chris Christie's a lawyer, for sure. I think there were 3, but I couldn't point out who they were. But every single other Republican on that stage last night, folks, was something else. Rand Paul is an ophthalmologist, as an example. Bernie was jeez, can't remember names. The other one was I'm sorry. You've got a brain surgeon. You've got an ophthalmologist. You've got a billionaire real estate businessman. You've got, Scott Walker as an example. None of these people were attorneys. They all accomplished something with their lives before they went into politics. And that's really the huge difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. The Democrats are all attorneys. Every single one of them is a goddamned, and I mean that in the purest possible term, a damned by God lawyer who get paid by the hour to talk, and people wonder why nothing gets done. So, and my only other beef with this is that Ted Cruz, for as great of a speech as he gives, and the fact that he's got this great sort of beagle-like face and whatever else, he's from Canada. They even said, they ran a graphic up there saying he was born in Calgary, but he renounced his Canadian citizenship right when he wanted to be president of the United States. And you think he renounced his Canadian citizenship when he moved to the United States, or when he came to America, or when he was a boy? No. It was last year. Last year, Ted Cruz, the Lion of the Senate, the guy who always goes against the party leadership, for good reason. I believe in what Ted Cruz is doing. And I believe that Ted Cruz has had to go against people in the Senate because Mitch McConnell of Kentucky is such a traitor. He really is. I mean, he has sliced the throat of the Republicans over and over and over again. He got you people in Kentucky a bridge for $5 billion, but in order to do that, he's the one that broke the stalemate, which allowed them to continue with the government when it looked like the Republicans might have won. And, Obama doesn't care. Obama doesn't care who suffers. Obama doesn't care who gets ground under the machine. Obama's all about Obama. Do you not get it? He's like a quadruple Leo. He's as close as you can get to an egomaniacal, sociopathic. If he wasn't president of the United States, he'd be like a pot-dealing homosexual serial killer. That's his astrological chart. But in every case, and once again, I don't think Trump did that well.
Would be.
I think he would be. Did I say that he wasn't? I don't think Trump did that well in debates. And to tell you the truth, I think Rand Paul did okay when he was back and forth with Casey. Scott Walker did a pretty decent job. Marco Rubio always has a few good lines to go out. Make him president of the United States? No, I don't think so. But the guy who came off, and I hate to say it, but the guy who came off the best was Jeb Bush. Actually, I think if you want to take the overall aspect of this, Jeb Bush won the debate. Why? Because he didn't get caught up in the name calling. They didn't get caught up in whatever else. He said, look, I ran a state. I used conservative principles. I applied those conservative principles. We did well in the state. I'm not sure if any of it's true, but unfortunately, Bush was the one that looked the most presidential. He was the one that didn't get flustered. He's the one that has the name recognition of the family. Although, again, as I point out, his family is responsible for more death and disaster, and he's got to play off the fact that he's not his brother. It is interesting that he is a Catholic. He is not a Protestant Episcopalian like the rest of his family, and he is married to he's married to an immigrant. I can never remember if she's actually from I'm pretty sure she's from Mexico. I keep wanting to say Cuba because I know Marco Rubio's from Cuba. His family's from Cuba. I know Ted Cruz's family is from Cuba. You got to watch out for Ted Cruz, though. He's Canadian. Again, he's a Canadian. And, and they've got to be stopped. Those salmon crunching nose rubbers, we call them? We call them they're snow Mexicans. That's what they are. They're snow Mexicans up there. They've got to be stopped, the snow Mexicans. And that's Ted Cruz. So why nobody has pointed out that unless you got a note from the Supreme Court that says you can run, like Goldwater needed in 1964 because he was born in Arizona when it was a territory. That's how old Goldwater was. He was born when Ponce de Leon discovered Florida, I think he came in. So whatever. So the debate was interesting from the point of view where I think Jeb Bush came out the best, looking the most presidential, and talked about his governorship, talked about what he accomplished, that he was a red governor in a blue state, that he grew the economy of Florida, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas Trump, they really did pick on Trump. I mean, the blonde girl, Kelly, Megyn Kelly, I think it was, I attacked him with that ridiculous, you've called women pigs and you've called them, I don't know, whatever names that you've called women. Donald Trump should say, I didn't call women that. I called certain people those things. And I've done a great deal for women. I have pageants that I sponsor. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad, but he has pageants that he sponsors that pays for travel, that pays for education, pays for makeup and hairspray, pays for bathing suits, whatever else. But he has pageants that the Miss America pageant, the Miss Universe pageant, that provide hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for, women too, for their education and scholarships, whatever. He's done all kinds of stuff for women. He doesn't like Rosie O'Donnell, and he called her a fat pig, but everybody thinks Rosie O'Donnell's a fat pig, and the entire crowd agreed with him when he said that. So by taking that swipe at Trump, where Trump easily could have deflected that by simply saying, yeah, I said those things, but we were having fun goofing around, but I said those things about certain people. I have strong opinions about certain people. And as far as women go, Megan, I think you're lovely, and I think you're bright and intelligent, and thank you for being on the panel, and I do lots of things for women in the course of the pageants that I run and whatever else. As far as any other zingers go, they tried to get up on top of Rand Paul for his, I don't know why everybody has to slavishly bow the knee to Israel. Every single person up there has to say, you have to, we've got to protect the Israelis, and the Israelis are all our buddies. And let me point out that Jonathan Pollard, probably the worst spy in U.S. history, just so happened to be working for Israel. And that gives you an idea what buddies we are with them. So everybody has to bow the knee to Israel because all of these candidates are sucking up to fabulously wealthy Zionist Jewish clients for money, with the exception of Donald Trump. And whether or not Donald Trump went up or down in the polls, they really didn't give him a chance to answer a serious question. They did nothing but attack him on his personal stuff. John Kasich came off great. I think Scott Walker came off very well. I think the doctor at the end, when he talked about, I've actually taken out half a brain, and he had his comment about you would think that most people in Washington have had this procedure done. I'm not sure that's exactly what he said, but he came off with some of the best stuff at the end. Marco Rubio hit a couple of points. But again, every time Marco Rubio talks, you think it's written on a card somewhere. It just looks fake. And I would pick out of that debate, again, I think Jeb Bush looked the best. I would love to see Trump running against Joe Biden. I still think that'd be the funniest thing ever. But Trump has if you look at what the country's going to be like under Trump, let's say President Trump, first off, we'd have a supermodel first lady, which I think would be hilarious. Can you imagine having Ivanka, who's not even an American? I don't know where she's from, but she's from, if not Russia, like Eastern Europe. So that's number one. Number two, he would turn the White House into a Trump tower. So the White House would probably have 30 more stories on it. Number three, they would absolutely build a wall between here and Mexico and finally shut the borders. Number four, he would work out trade deals that would be great for the United States. I mean, no more of the Chinese taking advantage of us anywhere. I mean, he would conceivably, I think, either bankrupt us or turn us into another superpower. And the one thing that I noticed about that is in watching those debates, I didn't hate anybody up there except Christie, because I know what a bastard Christie is. I know, he talks about being all for being fair and being for freedom, and yet there's a woman who has two black children who was coming from New York into New Jersey because she was afraid of the neighborhood she was going into. She gets pulled over by a policeman. She tells the policeman that she has a gun in the car for her own personal safety and protection in a very bad neighborhood. And thanks to Chris Christie, she's spending 3 years in jail.
Can I just say something about Chris Christie?
Yes, of course.
This man is... Have you heard me talk about the nung?
The nung?
The nung. The candida overgrowth that takes over your brain eventually. It's like a parasite.
Okay.
And Chris Christie is a perfect example of what happens when this candida takes over. He thinks like a fungus. He is very malign. I really, the energy that I see of him is very reminiscent of this guy Cyril Smith in Britain. He's dead now, but he was a black magician. You know, he was a black magician with Jimmy Savile. He was like, they worked together. Right. And he was a mountain of a man like this man. And I get the same vibe of him. And there's no kindness there's no heart in that man at all. That's my outside view from an alien spaceship.
And what would we call immigrants from Canada? Would we call them slushbacks? Instead of, I think Ted Cruz is an Eskimo, so I don't trust Eskimos. I don't know. I think it's so there it is. You can call
anyone called Nanook.
Nanook, yes, indeed. But maybe once again, there's no Mexicans. They're slushback Canadians who snuck into this country. All right, that's it. If you want to call up and have an opinion about whatever else, the only reason I was impressed with the 17 people up there is that, again, I think maybe 3 of them. You had 2 doctors, and by the way, the African American doctor. He's a rookie. I mean, he is his first big thing. He's a cold out of the box rookie at this. And I think had some fantastic points. He spoke very well. And I think he would make a heck of a vice presidential candidate. And I also think that I think everybody up there, if you had one of those people becoming president and and the rest of them on maybe a cabinet or something, I didn't hate anybody. I thought that I looked at that field of 17 people and I said to myself, any single one of these men I would not mind as having president of the United States. And any single one of these men would be, oh my God, just light years better than the kind of leadership that we've had for the last with Sugar the Wonder Cat sitting here. She just brought me a toy and now she's doing her little stripper dance. Rub me, give me a treat. And then you go try to touch her or grab her. And she's like, no, you cannot possess me. No. And she runs away.
Do you chase her with both hands kind of quivering in that sort of, come here, let me stroke you?
She's so weird. She's, like I said, she follows me around. She just has to be near me. And then she's got a weird phobia about ever getting up on the bed. I guess somebody must have held her on the covers or something. And because then you like sit on the bed and you try to rub her and you try to pet her and she runs away. And then whenever you say Sugar, whenever you say her name, she thinks she's going to get a bath or that we're going to do something. She's going to get her nails clipped or we're going to comb poop out of her fur or something. So the minute you say Sugar, she runs away. So her love is very conditional is all I can say.
Oh,
and I want to say,
I can feel for her, and she's really like very. Is she like very long hair? Really long hair, hasn't she?
Well, she's a supermodel cat, so
yeah. So it's like each of those hairs is an aerial, it's an antenna of feeling. She can feel everything with that.
No, I was trying to find a picture of her for you here, but I don't think I have any pictures.
Yeah, I think I've seen her on your Facebook page, but yeah, they're so sensitive. So she's probably happy to just brush by the outside edge of your aura. That's enough energy in you. You're probably like electric, thousands of volts for her.
Yeah, well, she's always on the counter. She has these one particular chicken treats that she just goes.
Chicken.
Yeah, she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when she has that. So I'll see if I can find a picture for you here. Anyway, I'm very sorry. A friend of mine Skyped in, Mr. Let me see if I can get it here. No, okay, cancel that. Mr. What is it? It's Amos, and he has a thing for his Facebook picture that's like it looks like a piece of bacon. I said, why do you have a piece of bacon as your Facebook picture? And he says, that's not bacon. That's the scroll of the Torah. I was like, God. I'm so sorry. It looks like bacon. I'm really sorry. And he's like, he's like he blew the yarmulke like right off his head.
That's worthy of including in a movie. That kind of
I know. It's
level
like, why do you have a piece of bacon?
That
picture goes, that's a page from the Torah scroll. It's from the original book of Isaiah from the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm like, well, it looks like bacon on your Skype thing. And he wanted
of course,
to know,
nobody Jewish would recognize that, Sean. You understand
exactly. That? And that's why it was so horribly offensive. And I'm very, very sorry that your Torah scroll looked like
moment.
A piece of yummy, crispy bacon. So, and he said, and he was listening by mistake. He was listening to Studio B. So, once again, any tributes to Jon Stewart? Yes, Jon Stewart did brilliant comedy on TV. I think that he belongs on the Mount Rushmore of comedy. Now that they're taking Bill Cosby off, they should probably put Jon Stewart on. But the Mount Rushmore of comedy would probably be, the great comedians of all time. And look, you got to give it to Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was he was the pioneer of great comedians. But between him, Steve Martin, every single one of the Monty Python guys, both together and individually, Richard Pryor. And some of the guys that have just died. You just had John Panette, who was a genius comedian. You had who was the other guys? He just committed suicide. God, I can't even remember his name. I don't know why. I'll remember his name in a second. But he was Platypus Man. He's what he called himself. And I think that stand-up comedy is a really, really lost art. And I think Jon Stewart did something really amazing. He took the art of satire, and with a very, very talented group of people, took it to a level where the satire became more interesting and more truth-telling than the news itself. And that's why so many people started watching him. And so, anyway, Jon Stewart, on the one hand, I'm ambivalent about it because I completely disagree with the large majority of his politics. I think that he represented, as I said, the left-wing establishment intelligentsia. I think that they used humor and satire to skewer people who were trying to do good things. If you were anywhere on the conservative end of the spectrum, at some point in time, the Daily Show people actually went at you and went after you. But on the other hand, that doesn't make him any less of a comic genius that I would put up there with Rodney Dangerfield and Richard Jeni. I'm sorry. How come I have such a problem remembering his name? Richard Jeni was one of the most genius comedians working, and he was, whatever happened, he went upstairs in his house and blew his brains out. I mean, his girlfriend was downstairs, walked upstairs in a fit of depression. And Richard Jeni, I used to follow him around. I used to go every time he came to Hermosa Beach. We would go see him. Richard Jeni, Dave Attell as well. As far as comedy, you want to laugh your ass off. You want to laugh at the funniest thing ever, JP. Download Dave Attell's Skanks for the Memories is what it's called. And Skanks for the Memories, you listen to it twice, is one of the funniest comedy CDs I think ever. And Dave Attell probably is one of the fastest, funniest, and dirtiest comedians out there working today. But Richard Jeni was a genius. John Panette was a genius. Bill Cosby in his time, you can't take it away from him. Yeah, he was all pervy and apparently was sucking on girls' toes in the Playboy Mansion. But that's where everybody sucked on everybody. The Playboy Mansion is a gigantic – it's a swing party. The whole thing is a massive celebrity swing party where somehow, some way, the media has looked the other way and basically just puts its finger on its nose and gives a big wink that everybody knows that everybody goes to the Playboy Mansion to basically get laid with supermodels and go in the grotto and do whatever. And I know because I used to hang out there in the 70s because I used to work for Playboy. So I know what the Playboy Mansion's like. I used to play pool in Space Invaders with Hefner back in the day. Long time ago. That was the Sean that didn't even know how to work one girl at a single time.
Well, you were kind of shy boy observing all this stuff.
No, not at all. No, I was not me. I was diving right in the middle. I was like, woohoo, get the baby oil. Let's go.
Okay. So you may have grandchildren already.
I don't know. All I know is I didn't know. I don't know how to work, less than 2 girls at a time. That's all I can say. So, but that was a long time ago. That was way, It was way last Monday. So anyway,
now you have to have several wives.
And I'm if I could get them to get along, I don't know if it's what I can do. So, anyway. All right. So let me do this. Okay. I told we were going to get back to actual stories here. All right, so here's what's going on. Gun confiscation fears lead to a protest in northern Idaho, and this is Idaho, mind you. A group of, I don't know, they could be considered residents, but citizens, whatever, in northern Idaho lined up outside a U.S. Navy veteran's house on Thursday to protest claims that federal officials are planning on confiscating the man's weapons. Idaho Republican State Representative Heather Scott of Blanchard said the Veteran Affairs Office has sent a letter to John Arnold of Priest River warning him that he cannot possess or purchase firearms. Now, the protest spearheaded by Scott attracted roughly 100 people, and among them were, which are all the people that live there, by the way, Bonner County Sheriff Darrell Wheeler, who promised to stand guard against any federal attempts to remove Arnold's guns, and Republican Washington State Representative Matthew Shea, of Spokane Valley, who described the event as a defiance against tyranny. I took an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution and uphold the laws of Idaho, Wheeler said. That's how they talk in Idaho. This seemed appropriate to show my support. I was going to make sure Mr. Arnold's rights weren't going to be breached. Now, during Thursday's demonstration, the group at times broke out in song to sing God Bless America and pray while waving both the American flag, the corporate symbol under which all this tyranny is being enacted, and the Don't Tread on Me flag, which is infinitely better than the corporate symbol for us Vespuccians. But with a population of just 1,700, Priest River is near the tip of northern Idaho, a region known for its strong Tea Party roots and gun rights activism. Well, Scott was one of the key lawmakers during this year's legislature who helped sink legislation that would have put Idaho in compliance with federal child support laws. Doing so put Idaho at threat of losing millions of federal dollars in resources and required the Idaho legislature to meet for a special session at which the state finally passed the legislation. Arnold did not immediately respond to calls from the Associated Press, but Veterans Affairs spokesman Brett Bowers confirmed a letter had been sent to Arnold from the VA benefits office in Salt Lake City. But he said that VA policy prohibits discussing individual health records without consent. Bowers added that the agency doesn't have the authority to confiscate weapons. We don't send officers to confiscate weapons. We are about providing health care to veterans, he said. But currently, the VA department can bar veterans from purchasing guns if they are declared incompetent. However, this authority has been criticized by Second Amendment advocates. Most recently, Republican U.S. Senator John Cornyn of Texas proposed legislation that would require court action before barring gun purchases by veterans that have been declared incompetent. And that's a pretty big psychological gap there. Incompetent. Incompetent at what? Incompetent mentally, incompetent physically. This does happen sometimes. So the VA sends out a letter, said Brian Holt, Veteran Services Officer for Bonner County, especially if a veteran has dementia and a fiduciary has to be appointed to manage finances like pension and income. You wouldn't want that person to be in possession of a gun. Okay, that's a pretty big jump that you have somebody to help you with finances and a pension. And, well, I don't know. Do you really want grandpa all crazy in his underpants running around your house with a gun? And actually, the Idaho sheriff in this particular case is guarding the man. I mean, the Bonner County Sheriff, Darrell Wheeler, says he and his deputies are going to stand guard against any federal attempts to remove guns from Mr. Arnold. So this is all becoming quite a big deal. Okay. Wow. All right. Well, here's one for you. Here's one for all you shut-ins. Hey, JP, you remember when water was free and you could drink it out of the hose and porn was expensive? Well, not some more. Pornhub, the largest pornography site on the internet, is going premium. The company isn't beating around the bush. They're beating in the bush. Pornhub wants to become the Netflix for porn. The porn site has launched a new on-demand streaming service called Pornhub Premium. So buy yourself some tissue and a case of lube at Costco for $9.99 per month. Though there is a 7-day trial option for those who want to try before they buy. Yeah, after 7 days, you'll just be like a withered husk on the floor. Netflix offers plans ranging from $7.99 per month to $11.99 per month. So Pornhub Premium main selling points are an ad-free experience, faster playback, higher quality streaming for the millions of videos already available on Pornhub. And the company also claims it offers the largest collection of, quote, exclusive full-length HD adult titles available in crisp 1080p resolution. It's almost like you're a geek actually being there, which will never happen. Pornhub Premium is available on mobile devices, tablets, desktops, computers. Really? What happens if you watch this stuff on the plane? Can you get tossed off a plane for watching this? The company is also working on dedicated Android and Roku apps, so porn will be everywhere. Remember when you had to work for your porn? Remember when you had to sneak a magazine out of the attic?
You had to wear coats and things and make,
yeah, exactly.
And paint moustache on your bum fluff,
go out
so that you look more than 15 as you do.
Yeah, and of course, Pornhub Premium will get virtually virtual reality integration at the beginning of 2016. This is part of a bigger trend that Pornhub has embraced. Last month, the site launched I'm not kidding, the twerking butt is what it's called. This is an actual add-on. It's a computer toy. The twerking butt, which is a sex toy complete with a virtual reality headset. I think women are doomed, actually. I think they say on the site, we asked the company how exactly virtual.
I just think relationships are doomed. I think, we're going to have everybody's going to either go one way or the other. Yeah. You're either going to go cyber or you're just going to go with your own people,
I think women.
It's so much easier. I don't know. It's hard, I have had many, and you probably have, many lesbian friends, and they have worse breakups and worse drama than heterosexual couples. It's it's having twice as much women.
You know what I said to my lesbian friends? The lesbian girlfriend that I know, I said, you realize that you're dating a woman. You understand that? She said, yeah, I know. And it's like, you hang out with men, you like men, but you're a lesbian, but you understand there's still women. And she's like, yeah. And it's funny because the bisexual girl that I'm friends with, that I'm really very close to, and I don't know what it is about these lesbians that get all fat. Like I told you, I think vagina's got to be like 10,000 calories a lick or something, because all these lesbians are so huge. And these girls are super hot. I mean, my friend is she's like part Comanche. She's like a Comanche Nazi. Like her grandfather was like an SS colonel or something. And it's like her grandmother was a Comanche Indian. So she's a little radical, but her girlfriend is superb. I mean, her girlfriend looks like, I call her Kara Zor-El. I mean, how's it going, my little Kryptonian? Because she looks like Supergirl. She runs a workout place. She runs a string of these. She's a bodybuilder chick. So, and they moved in together. And I talked to my friend, and she said, "Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever." She said, "Now I never get sex." And I'm like, "Welcome to being married." And she's like, "I never get sex. We don't cuddle. We don't do anything. It's all about business." And I was so much happier when I had my own space. See, Pip agrees. Yeah. So much happier when I have my own space. And the two of them together, I think, kind of miserable. But anyway, so getting back to the story, to support what they call, they say, well, once we release VR headsets, we'll be looking to support what they call the Oculus Rift, first and foremost, with others potentially on the horizon. Oculus Rift. Pornhub Vice President Corey Price told VentureBeat, the Oculus makes the most sense to develop for at the moment, given its brand recognition. So that's why it's our initial choice. Oh, I see. It's a headset. It's a virtual reality headset, the Oculus Rift. So it's our initial choice, but it'll work the same way most videos and or games work on VR. You feel as if you're really there in front of the actors. The device's gyroscope, magnometer, accelerometers, and 360-degree field of view will all play into the porn experience ideally. Holy crap. And now
the race will die out in 10 years.
You're at the orgy. You're just at the orgy.
That's it. They'll just suck the juice right out again.
With several third-party sex toy peripherals, like the twerking butt, people can enhance their experience tenfold. So Pornhub promises that the billing process for its premium version will be secure and discreet, and there will be 24-hour customer service, and consumers will be able to cancel their memberships at any time. Users will benefit.
Users talking about a parcel that's like at least 2 feet in a cubic foot, 2 cubic feet, secure and discreet. We just arrived from Twerky Butt in. Sorry, this is really touching me. This
can't even speak. This is so funny. And now Pip's all upset. Users will benefit from enhanced access from all the content they already enjoy on Pornhub with improved streaming quality, as well as over 100,000 full-length premium exclusive scenes at the touch of a finger, or click of a mouse, We're looking to take the crown as the Netflix of porn, and with a colossal amount of content we'll be providing and adding tons more daily. Wow, here's a job opportunity for you, JP. We're confident our fan base will totally embrace this product and reinforce our position as the top provider of on-demand adult video. And when we first wrote about here's the website says, when we first wrote about Porn Time, an app that lets users stream video torrents, we were skeptical about its pitch, given that porn is already very accessible, yet downloads went through the roof. And still, it's difficult to see Pornhub Premium performing well, given not only that porn is readily available online, but that the vast amount of it now is free, which I can't even fathom. But including on Pornhub itself, that's sad. With the largest online audience and a promise to support virtual reality, the site may just be able to convert a small portion of its 60 million daily visitors and increase revenues with a subscription fee. So there you go. I think women, you better watch out. If this thing catches on and you can just plug in a virtual reality headset that fulfills all your needs, you better be careful. There are people, hold on, JP, there are people that think if that women didn't have breasts and vaginas that men would hunt them for food. What's your opinion on that?
Do you know anything about this research? I think they found a way of wiring an orgasm into a monkey's brain, and you just press the button and he gets an orgasm. Did you know about this one? This research they did?
I'm sure that describes Steve almost exactly to the T.
So guess what happens?
What?
The monkey presses the button and then presses the button and presses the button, presses the button, presses the button, and dies. We're doomed.
Again.
We're doomed.
So
I'm sorry.
Goodbye humans.
Goodbye, cruel world.
Tesla now has what's called a SnakeBot charger. Maybe there's a way to actually connect the SnakeBot charger into the VR Pornhub stuff, but it's
oh my god, then it'll kind of Urabus itself and we'll disappear up our own, snake bots.
Yep. So the SnakeBot slithers into sockets. Tesla has now given us a glimpse of the future, and it seems to involve somewhat creepy robotic arms that look like snakes. A newly released video reveals the company's new charging prototype, which plugs itself in without an ounce of human assistance. Now, this video, released by Tesla... Sorry?
I'm sorry, I'm just freaked out now. You've got a robot that plugs itself in.
With a penile projection that looks like a big snake. Yes.
Oh my god.
So it begins with a charger in an upright position, but after a few seconds, the figure begins to move just like a snake, and it's a little bit unsettling. And I'm here just for you, my friend, since you're the only person listening to the show today. Let me see.
Everybody else is grossed out. Okay.
Anyway, there it is. You can now play the video if you want to take a look at it. But this thing actually comes up and goes na 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 na. It goes right into the socket where your Tesla is. So it begins with a charger in an upright position, but after just a few seconds, the finger begins to move like a snake, and it's a bit unsettling. You can actually see it there because I gave it to you. It lowers its body towards a Model S sedan, twisting itself in such a realistic way that you can't help but wonder if it might actually be alive. And the robot manages to find the charging socket, connecting itself with ease and proving that humans are indeed becoming more and more obsolete. The invention doesn't come without irony for Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who has been vocal about the dangers of unsupervised robots and artificial intelligence in the past. Well, this one you just pull into your garage and you put it on a timer or something, and the SnakeBot actually just comes out and charges your car. But it's interesting because just last month, Elon Musk actually signed an open letter calling for an end of artificial intelligence arms race. He says the letter was signed by Steve Wozniak and Stephen Hawking. However, it seems that even Musk can laugh about the new situation that he's got. He actually has an artificial intelligence arm when he's now talking about ending the arm race in artificial intelligence. So it does seem kind of wrong. But the grand reveal didn't come as a complete surprise. The concept was teased by Musk in December when he said Tesla was working on the snake-like charger for reals. So, so there is all that.
Do you know what that looks like? Do you remember the Borg? When she finally met the Borg Queen, and there was Alice Krieg with this slithery metal-y thing. That looks exactly like that thing as it's lowered into the Borg Queen's body.
Yeah, she was super hot. She was the Queen of Borg, right? That was sort of mating with Locutus.
And she moved so slowly. Slithering and slowly. Yeah, and
even when it burned away all the flesh on her body. And speaking of Big Brother and everything else, Boeing has now been awarded – this is big news for both Southern California and I guess Seattle as well. But Boeing has been awarded a $6.6 million contract which is, by the way, a drop in the barrel. For $6.6 million is nothing. But they're going to design a cheap, reusable mini shuttle that can now launch military satellites. Well, we've just had I can't say just, but several months ago, we had a robot drone shuttle that was, I think, as big or larger than the space shuttle that had been gone in space for something like 2 years, that just came back and landed, and nobody knew this shuttle was up there. And of course, it was all being controlled by drone technology. But the small plane-like craft is known as the XS-1 program. I think it's interesting that it's XS as in excess, but it's X.
A little too much, yeah.
Short for Experimental Spaceplane 1, and could blast off in 2019 on its final test mission. It is hoped that Russian craft could quickly launch small satellites that could defend against the growing threat of Russian and Chinese space weapons. Because here's the other weird thing, too, is that, we have a treaty where you can't use a robot hunter-killer satellite to shoot down other satellites, but you can use a manned vehicle to shoot down satellites. It's a very weird thing in the treaty. So we can send a guy up in a craft like this, and of course, if they're announcing it, they've already got it, they've built it. It's, they've been there, they've done that, they've gotten the T-shirt, they drank the soda, they got the or humping robots. I'm not interested in being gay, hence I suspect now would be a good time to clone some real men. Perhaps the robot ass toy will sell off the market in the Middle East and save all those donkeys from being ass raped. Okay, thank you, Solaris, for chiming in. She's a lovely host on our.
It just seems to be the theme of the show,
ass raping donkeys and Democrats and all that.
Donks. Oh, yeah, Democrats. Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't get that one. Hang on, which one is which? Which one? I don't get this whole elephant and donkey thing. What's the deal with that? Can you explain that to a foreigner, to an alien?
For whatever reason, they decided that red was going to be the color of the Republican Party. I'm not sure who figured this out. In commerce, it's interesting because red is the creditor and blue is the debtor. So red is when your blood is full of oxygen, and therefore red represents life. And blue, which are the Democrats, represent death, or when actually represents the debtor in that case, because your blue blood is when it has no oxygen and has to actually then be refilled. So for whatever reason, the Republicans or the Grand Old Party have an elephant. And I have no idea as to why they picked it. All I know is that in regards to the Democrats, because their symbol is a jackass, you know what you're getting when you vote for them. And here's the symbol. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get some braying idiot, stubborn jackass with teeth that can eat steak through a fence. Hee-haw, hee-haw. So there's that, as opposed to elephants, which are big and lumbering and slow. And so the Red Party, and they've now decided, are the Republicans. I don't know where that came about, because the Democrats used to be like a green color, and they decided to do away with that. And now the Blue Party is the Democrats. So,
well, apparently the whole red, because it doesn't make any sense. For a second, please, Pip, let me in. He's very getting excited about the subject.
Pip is now worse than your girlfriend. Your girlfriend used to come in and go, "What are you doing on the radio? Talking to that stupid Sean Morton? Hey, tell him I hate him. I get him. I choke him. I like little wiener man. I take him. I toss him around. What is he?" And you throw a treat in the air, and I hear her jaws snap shut. She goes away. So that's, and now you have Pip in the background. Was really shy the first show that we had him on, and now he's just taking over the program. I think he wants to be a host on Revolution Radio.
Yeah, he does, actually. Oh, good. We're going to have letters. People are going to want yeah. Yeah? Really? You have no idea how wet my trousers are from him just drooling on them, because he knows that I've got a treat in my pocket. And that's why he's talking to me. He's saying, give me that treat. He's not concerned about politics. But here's a question, Sean. In Britain, when I grew up, it was red for the left wing. That was the socialists. And blue for the Tories, the right wing. And there you've got it. It's the other way round. So... See, he doesn't understand it either.
Well, remember that the Republicans were not. First you actually had Thomas Jefferson. You had the same kind of parties here in the United States. You did have the Tories. You had the Whigs. You had Thomas Jefferson. He began the Populist Party. He began the Populist Party somewhere around about 1800 or so. The Republicans were considered the radicals. I mean, the Republicans were a radical upstart party that nobody thought was going to win. And then you had Abraham Lincoln, who of course then rose up out of the radical wing of the Republican Party at that time. And it was very strange because the party of Negroes in the United States was Republican. They were all Republicans. You would not think of the Republican Party as being purely black. And it all shifted when Roosevelt came to power, and all of the blacks became Democrats because they were like, well, Mr. Roosevelt, he's going to give us stuff, so we better all become Democrats so we can get more stuff. And that's how they suddenly started to become the welfare state, the New Deal, the Fair Deal, all that other stuff, and that's how the Democratic Party actually shifted. But it was the party of Lincoln. You had everybody, all the blacks and the Negroes in the United States were all Republicans at some point because of Lincoln, because of the Emancipation Proclamation and 13th Amendment and all that stuff. But yeah, so here, we don't really just have two parties. I'm sure if a third party came up through it and grabbed enough attention, then yes, we could elect a third party candidate. It's just the fact that the political machines for the primaries and for everything else are so locked in. And it used to be in the United States, it was all decided in the convention system. And who threw that out was Teddy Roosevelt. The very first presidential primary was in 1912. And it was in 1912 because Teddy Roosevelt made the biggest mistake of his life where he said, I will not run for a third term. And the press was going to keep him to that. And it was the worst thing that he could have done because he was really good at being president of the United States. He wanted to stay as president, but
yeah, there we go, Sean. Sorry, very upset, and I can't even blame him for the station going off there. My
all right,
phone going off there. Anyway,
all right, there it is. I don't know. I was on some rant about something in January. Gucci's menswear runway collection was an eye-opener. It wasn't because the brand had just fired its nearly decade-long creative director, Frida Giannini, in December, or even because new designer Alessandro Michele had pulled the clothing together in less than a week in his new role. It was because the men like girls. In fact, some of them were women. An increasing trend in menswear shows models of both genders, these waifish male models and boyish female models with hair cut with a weed whacker. I mean, they're getting younger and younger. They might as well just bowl a fetus down the runway. But they all look alike, and they're all wearing silhouettes, fabrications, and items of clothing that traditionally all appear in women's wear collections. So Michelle's deliberately ambiguous outfits featured massive pussycat bow blouses. These are on men, by the way. Shrunken jackets, low-slung, wide-legged trousers on willowy models with matching soft features, lengthily undone hair. And just like that, this change in creative direction became symbolic of an industry-wide trend, and Michelle, the movement's unofficial leader. A shift towards androgyny has been building over the past 2 years, and with Gucci's new experimental take, it has hit its stride. It's worth noting that the recently slumping Gucci just reported its first sales growth in 2 years, a 4.6% increase for the second quarter of 2015, which is up 7.9% from the decrease of its first quarter. But gender bending is now nothing new in fashion or pop culture. But in large-scale, high-end fashion, the theme has not been conveyed as loudly or as frequently since, well, a young Mick Jagger and David Bowie and Mark Bolan, if you remember the whole look of the late 60s. What was the 60s, and then which was all furry and hairy and beardy. And then you came into the early 70s, and then it became all glammy and transsexual, if you will. But they all toyed with feminized looks in the 60s and early 70s. But today, thanks to a troupe of contemporary designers such as Rick Owens and J.W. Anderson, this theme of gender-neutral dress has been reimagined. The concept of androgyny comes up from time to time in fashion, says Nancy Dial, director of the Costume Studies MA program at New York University. In modern fashion history, two of the most notable examples are the 20s and the late 60s and the early 70s. They were all pretty dandified. Daly notes that both were periods of social upheaval which reflected an empowered youth culture. The post-World War I generation and the baby boom that created the young population of the 60s represented times when young people had a lot of economic and cultural influence. And androgyny is certainly not a passing trend, but one that is going through another cycle with a new generation. So, anyway, that's it. I don't want. The next 2 years will see the trend increase, according to Barney's Calderian. Clients are receptive, he says. Ultimately, it's more about beautiful clothes that are rare and special. It's more of a sidebar note that these clothes are stylistically less rigid than what we perceive to conform to a definition of masculine versus feminine. And again, my Dutch nephew, Sallow, went into the Starbucks only to see a dude dressed completely like a woman. And it's just, he's like, Uncle Sean, what's happening to the world? And I might also point out that this was in the LA Times today. The LA Times now says if you're going to become a student at a California campus school, that means UCLA, Berkeley, UC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Cruz, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you had a box that used to say male, female. Now you have 6 choices of what gender you want to be. 6.
Maybe there is just make it a line and sort of draw, put an X somewhere along there.
Yeah. 6. So there's male, there's female, there's transgender male, transgender female, transvestite, and I don't know, transsexual, anyone who's going through an operation to physically become an animal, like a cat or something, surgically inserted a tail or whatever. And a lesbian couple, once again, speaking of lesbians, I don't know if we were not. Why is the show just denigrated and all this stuff? We went from Jon Stewart to debates to whatever, but this was all the news stories today.
It's the twerkathon, I think. The twerkatronics is it was the low point.
The twerking butt, the robot twerking butt. I wonder if it's actually shaped like Miley Cyrus. A lesbian couple has faked a hate crime.
You can probably get a Kim Kardashian model. You're not going to hide that from the neighbors much.
You might as well just go have sex with a horse. That's what I'm going to say. That her giant centaur-like ass. Yeah, sure, that's fine. I am if Kanye and Kim don't name their next kid after me, they're out of the family. That's all I can say. Okay, so a lesbian couple, and once again, not very attractive. These women are both tipping the scales, and probably $2 and whatever. I'm just saying, it's just kind of weird. A lesbian couple faked a hate crime that left their home a pile of charred rubble at their Vonore, Tennessee property in 2010. An insurance company caught on to the ruse months after the blaze and accused Carol Ann and Laura. Okay, I'm not kidding. This is her name. Carol Ann and Laura. Oh, I'm sorry. Stutte. I'm so sorry. Without my glasses, it looked like Slutte. I could not believe her name was Laura Slut, but her name is Laura Stute. Stute? They perpetuated a hoax and blamed the fire on their neighbor, said the Knoxville, of course it comes out of Tennessee, says the Knoxville News Sentinel reported. A federal jury ruled in favor of the insurance company's belief that the couple spray painted an anti-gay slur on their own garage to spin the fire as a hate crime based on their sexual orientation. And across, it's not their garage, by the way, it's underneath their window, but somebody in really bad spray paint actually wrote out the word in about 4-foot-high letters, wrote out the word queers on the front of their house. The homeowners intended to bank on an insurance claim of more than $276,000 that American National and Casualty Company alleged in court documents obtained by the News Sentinel. The target of their stunt was Janice Millsaps, a neighbor whom the Stutts accused in news reports and a lawsuit of threatening to kill them and burn their house down. Do you know what's better than one dead queer? 2 dead queers is what the Stutts accused Millsap of saying 1 month before the September 4th blaze that destroyed their home. The word queers was scrawled across their garage during the fire. Millsap was never charged in connection to the ensuing accusations, even as the FBI and Tennessee Bureau of Investigation stepped into the probe. The alleged hate crime garnered sympathy for the residents of the small town from a local PFLAG chapter. I don't even know what that stands for. After Stutt described knowing who the arsonist was 2 weeks after losing their home. We know who wrote those threats, Stutt told the Metro Pulse. Anyone who could go so far as to paint those hateful letters and burn someone else's house down, they're really disturbed. but it turns out it was really them. So anyway, there you go. It is, well, here we have Israel, which is, I can't even say this, but it's, there's all kinds of violence in the Middle East, according to the New York Times.com. Jerusalem, in one edge of Zion Square, gathering an Orthodox yeshiva student, on one edge of the Zion Square gathering, an Orthodox yeshiva student was in a heated debate with a secular couple over the hierarchy of sin. On the other, young men wearing skull caps rocked back and forth, reciting the evening prayer. In between, people sat cross-legged on the cobblestones amid an array of memorial candles and banners decrying violence, promoting love, demanding change. And the focal point was a black cloth with a simple white chalk Hebrew letters spelling out Ali Sad Dawashabi and Shira Banki, although my Hebrew is terrible. The Palestinian toddler who was burned to death in the West Bank home, with the 16-year-old Jewish girl fatally stabbed at a gay pride march in Jerusalem. Yeah, they don't like people who are too light in the loafers in Israel, by the way. The back-to-back attacks a week ago, attributed to religious fanatics, set off a national outcry and reflection, with hundreds flocking here each night for a mixture of mourning and protest. A time of deep questioning across Israel after two deaths that underscored both the endless conflict with the Palestinians and its own internal struggle to balance a rising religiosity with civil rights. Have government policies and rabbinical authorities inspired or at least allowed a radical fringe to reach new depths of depravity? Who interprets Jewish law and Jewish values for the Jewish state? How did it come to this? The trauma hit during anniversary commemorations of both last summer's war between Israel and Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip. And for days now, there have been an outpouring of outrage of Israel's chief saying, oh, even I'm bored by this story. I'm sorry. This is just, it's not even a Strange Universe story. I know. I'm just halfway through it. It's like, oh, this is dumb.
No. I just want to say something. This is about the transhuman thing. Yes. I think a lot of this gender non-specificity thing is a way of breeding us out of desire for each other, and thus to wipe out from a philosophical point of view, to wipe out an entire species. Right. And it was now what's her name? So there's Caitlyn Jenner, right? And before that was what's her name? Angelina Jolie.
Right.
She removed her femininity. She had quite pert, but now she's like a boy,
Yeah.
And then there's
she had her breast cut off and all that stuff.
Yeah, and then there's Caitlyn, who used to be quite fit and now tries to look like a girl. Not very well. But it's all about like getting to a gender neutral. Is that what's the agenda?
Yeah,
I think it's to go into a robot, basically.
Yeah, it could be.
They'll never reproduce.
You're absolutely right. Although there's a lot of people who believe that at the end of the Kali Yuga, you were going to have, well, at the end of any age, you have androgyny. You've got a massive rise in homosexuality. You've got a huge blending of the races, if you will. And there are many people, if you look at all the Hindu Vedas, who talk about the end of the age of the Kali Yuga, and at the end of the age of the Kali Yuga, these are all things that are all predicted one way or another. You could also say that because we're in the resurrection of the quick and the dead, we're in universal reincarnation,